Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 6 of the Colts on Kirkwood podcast. I am your host, Owen Graham, alongside Peter Miller and Jack Rizzo here for another episode of Colts on Kirkwood. Folks, another week, another win for the Indianapolis Colts as they move to 4-1 on the season, defeating the Las Vegas Raiders 40-6 inside of Lucas Oil Stadium. Pretty dominant effort from start to finish from the Colts, outside of a few moments here and there, but nothing that you can really nitpick from a Colts standpoint on either side of the ball. But yeah, Indianapolis is on a tear right now. I almost said Indiana. Indiana football plays this week, so a lot of eyes on that as well. But Indianapolis, all eyes are right now on the Colts and just how good of a start they have had in the NFL season, which is very unprecedented for a lot of us here inside the podcast booth, and probably was for a lot of people around the Indy area. But Colts doing their thing. Anything to add for anyone?
I think after 5 games, if you would have told me the Colts would be the number 1 seed in the AFC, I would have called you crazy. This is, as you said, Owen, it's just unprecedented. It's unexpected. Came definitely out of the blue to me, to the two of you. But I think you look at this overall performance against the Raiders, you win 40-6, and it's just a complete performance all around. You kind of get things started with a blocked punt that set things up nicely for your offense. Win the field position battle, a lot of really, really short fields for Daniel Jones and the offense to work with. I believe at one point they went 6 straight drives scoring a touchdown that tied a franchise record. And the defense did their thing with takeaways and intercepting Geno Smith twice. He still leads the league with 9 interceptions after yesterday. And I think it's very easy to get excited about this amazing start and to be the number 1 seed in the AFC. I don't think Colts fans really saw that coming, so this does sort of feel like uncharted territory. But I do think that there is little reason to pump the brakes a little bit. Haven't seen too many quality opponents, let's say, yet this season. Mm-hmm. Your best 2 teams you've played, were the Broncos, kind of had that win handed to you, and the Rams, which if you didn't stumble over your own feet, A.D. Mitchell didn't stumble over his own feet, then maybe we're looking at a 5-0 Colts team. So
be the only undefeated team in the league right now.
Definitely, I definitely think there's some cautious optimism with the Colts. But what I really hope to see going forward is can you put together games like this against better teams? And I think if you can do that, then we can really talk about being a true juggernaut in the AFC.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is well, the Colts did exactly what they needed to do in this game, especially coming off a loss. They just completely dominated this game from start to finish. The defense, other than that opening drive, they didn't let Las Vegas get anything. Ashton Jeanty was coming off a 3-touchdown performance. He didn't do much. Geno Smith just looks completely rattled right now. And sure, he's playing behind a really bad O-line, and I don't really think Chip Kelly is helping much at all. But, as you said, Peter, he's leading the league in interceptions, and some of that blame has to fall on Geno Smith. And obviously the Colts offense scoring on 6 straight touchdown drives in the middle of the game. One of the things I was really concerned about with the Colts after the first month was their red zone offense and how much they struggled in the red zone. So to go 6 for 6 in the red zone yesterday was a really good sign, I think, for this offense moving forward. And I understand the cautious optimism. I understand that it's only 5 games, so you don't want to get too excited about it. But at the same time, the Colts did not have games like this last year. Every single win the Colts had last year was by 1 possession, and 3 of their 4 wins this year have come by multiple possessions. The Colts had 3 from 2022 to 2024. The Colts had 3 total wins by 1 possession or more. So to have 3 in the first month of the season, I think is a tremendous accomplishment for the Colts. And before I pass it on, I want to shout out Ashton Doolin for what he did on Sunday. I think he's always been such an underrated Colt, and he finally got an opportunity to shine more on Sunday than he usually has, and he really made the most of it. Carved himself a role on this offense and continues to be the ace he's been on special teams for a number of years now.
I think sorry.
Go for it, Peter.
I think special teams really showed up yesterday. Special teams is awesome. Ashton Jeanty, he had a touchdown taken back because of a holding call. So that just, I mean, that adds on to what you were saying about the value and the versatility that he's added, Jack, and the player he's been over the years for the Colts. I do, and I'm sure we would have gotten to it eventually. I do want to point out the injury to Spencer Schrader, who has now been ruled out for the year with multiple ligament injuries in his knee, ACL and MCL. That's a huge, huge blow because not only had the Colts struggled to find consistency at the kicker position since Adam Vinatieri's retired, Spencer Schrader's been on an absolute tear. He even after yesterday and after missing most of the game, he still is the league leader in points for any position, and he had only missed one kick all year. I think it frustrates me because I want the best for Spencer Schrader, and I think it's so awesome that the Colts have finally seemed like they're having an answer, and not that he can't be the answer once he's back healthy. It totally throws another wrench into things and makes you wonder just how much that could affect things down the road.
Schrader was actually tabbed the AFC Special Teams Player of the Month for September, which I think is also notable. But like you said, he's been one of the key contributors of points this season for, I guess you could kind of say, the Colts offense, just with how reliable he's been on the field goal and extra point tries. But you take him away, then that, there's some question marks there. And that's not something you want to have for special teams, period. Like, I feel like special teams is the one that where maybe you can think, okay, it's the least amount of plays, but it's the most amount of solidarity you want in a unit on a team. And when you take your kicker, who has been on a tear, out of that equation, then that kind of takes some of that away, and you have a lot of question marks moving forward. I think I'd like to go over some names that is still kind of available for the Colts to maybe take a stab at. Luckily for them, kicker's not necessarily the position where you need to have like the biggest chemistry fit. You need to go out and get this like character guy that fits your team or anything like that. So I think you can kind of go any direction you really want with this, obviously without, stealing a kicker from a different team or anything like that. I'm going to butcher his name, but Younghoe Koo is on the Giants practice squad. I think that's the most notable name that you can kind of look at. Michael Badgley, I think, is still out there as a free agent, kicked for the Colts in the past few years. And then a lot of people are going to like this name, Rodrigo Blankenship. You see him on TikTok. You see him doing his thing, recreating NFL kicks. He's out there. And, a lot of people don't necessarily they hear that and they're like, okay, let's get serious. But in the UFL, I think that's what they call it now, I guess minor league of football is right now. The UFL, he missed one field goal in his entire season with the St. Louis Battlehawks. So he had a good season with them. A reunion could be in place. I don't think Colts fans would hate it necessarily, but you want probably someone with a little bit more consistency in the NFL in regards to that. So I think, Colts could go a variety of different directions with that. Anything to add?
I think you can also, if I were the Colts, I'd be keeping an eye on Matt Prater right now, who
That's true.
Is with the Bills, but Tyler Bass likely to be back in the next few weeks. So just monitor that situation, see what the Bills want to do with Matt Prater there. He's, I believe, still 100% on the year for extra points and field goals. I know he's over 40 years old, so he's pushing it age-wise, and maybe he might not want to keep kicking. Maybe he just took this Bills job as a one-off to kind of just get that feeling back again. But no, I think that it's definitely a situation worth monitoring as you look for somebody to take over for the rest of the season.
And then the other, I guess, name that is also notable is Maddox Trujillo, which was with the preseason roster for a while. Didn't really, see any time in preseason games just because, when you know who your kicker is, you're going to stay with that through the preseason. But He was the guy that the Colts brought on in the preseason. So another name to look after. Jack, anything to add on that front?
Yeah, the only other name I would keep an eye on, really, you mentioned all of them, but one guy you didn't is Zane Gonzalez, guy who last fully healthy season kicked 91% field goal accuracy with the Carolina Panthers, missed 2 seasons, kicked 6 games last year with Washington and was pretty solid. Big leg kicker, somebody that I think could be an intriguing name for the Colts, but that's not really, I don't think, as likely of a name as some of the others, but I think one to keep an eye on because, he's always had the potential. He's been a big leg kicker, but I just don't think that's going to happen. But yeah, the loss of Schrader is absolutely huge. People aren't going to realize it because it's special teams, but I mean, this is as you said, the reigning AFC Special Teams Player of the Month. Colts have got to find a solution early and often. They're hoping they can find the next Brandon McManus or Jake Bates, guy who could just come in the middle of the season and revive these kicking for a team.
Yeah, I think that the main thing that you just have to kind of look in is consistency. I mean, Spencer Schrader, through that first month, just looked dialed in. You're probably not going to necessarily get a Spencer Schrader type guy for the rest of the season. But at least someone that you can kind of rely on and feel comfortable putting the ball at their feet moving forward. But outside of special teams, I think we can kind of go into the offensive side of things for the Colts on Sunday. The big story, you guys mentioned it, was 6 for 6 in the red zone, scored on 6 straight drives, all of them bringing touchdowns. I mean, it was just picking apart the Raiders defense. Max Crosby was practically invisible for pretty much the entire game, apart from a really nice play he had on Jonathan Taylor and just kind of got right past Braden Smith in that first quarter drive. But other than that, really took him out of the game, and that kind of allowed Daniel Jones to do his thing and really kind of like I said last week, kind of dictate the pace and dictate the result of this game through their offense.
Daniel Jones, yesterday was an exact example of what Daniel Jones was brought to Indianapolis to do. He was not brought in to throw for 400 yards, be Superman, and when the game's on the line, you make a massive play. No. He was brought in to be efficient, accurate, facilitate the offense, and put up points. That's exactly what happened yesterday. The Colts put up 40 points. Daniel Jones threw for 2 touchdowns, was 20 for 29, and was overall just fantastic in operating the offense. He was quick with his release. He was hitting guys like Josh Downs and Tyler Warren quick off the snap, who both had really solid games, in my opinion. But Daniel Jones just continues to build off of this great start to the season that he's had. And it's so refreshing to see because the Colts haven't had this since Andrew Luck. Mm-hmm. And we talk about, the hot start and what that could lead to. Having that consistency at the quarterback position is what's going to separate you at the end of the day from some of those teams that might not get the same level of consistency or maybe lean more on their run game or rely on their receivers to make plays, or a defense-first team. Having consistency and reliability at the quarterback position, it's harped on all the time in the NFL, but it cannot be understated how important it is. And the Colts finally have it, and I think it's going to be a big reason why they're going to be able to continue to compete in the AFC and hopefully remain in that number 1 seed for now.
Yeah, this was a game. The offense really did not have to do much in this game. I mean, the Colts defense gave the offense the ball 3 times in Las Vegas territory. 3 of their drives started inside the 50-yard line. But when the offense needed to move the ball down the field, they did, and they did so with efficiency. I mean, Daniel Jones, really just a game manager type of game for him. 20 of 29, 212 yards, 2 touchdowns. Just made, safe throws, took what the defense gave him. And as we talked about last week, this was a game where the Colts did not need to push the ball down the field, and they didn't. They kept everything basically within 10 to 15 yards of the line of scrimmage, and it was just a really nice job by Daniel Jones against a defense that has really struggled. I mean, they've given up 81 points now in their last 2 road games, the Raiders defense has, and just a really nice job by Daniel Jones. He had that beautiful throw in the back of the end zone to Michael Pittman Jr. to close out the first half. Had a couple nice throws to Ashton Dulin as well, who I'm going to keep mentioning him. Had a great day yesterday. Everything the Colts asked him to do, he did. Josh Downs, I think, had his best game of the season. A couple of big third down catches, including a really nice one early on in the game where he made one guy miss, then spun out of a tackle to pick up a first down on 3rd and long. Tyler Warren found the end zone yesterday. And obviously, we'll get to the run game in a second. I see you with Owen because you called that one last week. Well done.
Not the passing touchdown, which he did throw. He did throw for a second. It was not a great throw, but he did make a throw.
Yeah, did make the throw, but I mean, it just shows. I mean, you just see his IQ though with the fact that he threw that. He threw it away as soon as he realized that nothing was open. And Shane Steichen didn't say it after the game, but I'm not sure if that was designed to be a throw from Tyler Warren. Maybe there was just no blocking, and the Raiders had swallowed that play up that he was thinking about throwing it. But obviously nobody's open, threw it away, and then he was rewarded the very next play with catching an 11-yard touchdown pass on a nice little route designed by Shane Steichen. So overall, easy day for the offense. They didn't really have to do much. I mean, the Raiders' defense isn't really great. Braden Smith did a great job containing Max Crosby yesterday. He did the same against TJ Watt last year. But I think Braden Smith plays the best when it matters most. Quentin Nelson had another great game. And yeah, just a nice, easy performance from the offense. I would say probably their most efficient offensive performance of the season so far.
Braden Smith, once again, has yet to give up a sack this season. And that was big, especially with Max Crosby lining up opposite. I did see, though, during the game, there was a lot of obviously double teams on Max Crosby. Sometimes they throw both Mo Alley-Cox and Alec Ogletree on him in certain situations, or Mo Alley-Cox and Braden Smith. But either way, I mean, Braden Smith, really solid game on the outside there. And offensive line as a whole did just a really good job of just keeping the Raiders defense in check, which we kind of alluded to it last week. Probably their strong suit was kind of in the front seven. They have some notable names kind of here and there all around the place, but when you have Max Crosby in your unit, it's kind of hard to have a better unit other than your front seven in kind of that defensive line. So great job for the offensive line. And yeah, you hammered it. I think the unsung hero of this offense was Josh Downs. I think he had definitely his best game of the year so far, but it was that kind of those extra few yards with his elusiveness and him spinning out of tackles, that really nice spin play. Can kind of hear. I was actually in the stadium. Could kind of hear the oohs and ahs during the replay. So that was a really tough play, and I think that's just again like he's like their security blanket. When you'd have nothing, it was him last year to just throw it and he can give you yards. Now he can kind of be that kind of slot guy role who can kind of use his shiftiness and elusiveness to make plays and gain those extra yards, and not just be the guy that you have to kind of use as your last resort just for him to catch the ball and nothing else. So when you have Tyler Warren on your offense, that obviously takes that away from him. But you guys know I'm the biggest fan of this guy on the offense, and Tyler Warren is continuing to prove why he should be Offensive Rookie of the Year, in my opinion. Right now, I think it's just between him and Emeka Egbuka.
Yeah,
I think there's not really any debate in between those. I think Tyler Warren has the opportunity to do it. But it just shows like how much trust the Colts offense has in him throughout the game. Only 4 catches, but 44 yards, of course, his first receiving touchdown pass, continues to produce game in and game out. And I think that's really important for him moving forward.
I think the thing with Tyler Warren that's really fun for me is when was the last time we saw a Colts rookie, much less a first-round pick, be this impactful and this important right away?
Yeah.
I mean, Laiatu Latu wasn't even scheduled. He was a starter all of last year, but wasn't projected to be until Samson Ebukam went down in training camp. The next example I could think of would maybe be Jonathan Taylor, and that is again
it's a second round pick,
pick, and because of an injury to Marlon Mack in the season opener.
If you're talking about first round picks, I think it just goes back all the way to Andrew Luck at that point.
Certainly, especially skill position wise. Yeah. I mean, I was maybe going to throw Quentin Nelson out there because hard to ignore him.
That's a good point.
No, it's incredible what Tyler Warren's been able to do. And it makes you so intrigued for what the future holds for Tyler Warren in this offense, because if this is what he's doing now, it's only going to get better.
Yeah.
So going forward, and on the Josh Downs thing too, he's so fun to watch after the catch.
Yeah.
I mean, he's like literally a human joystick. I know that's kind of, like scouting jargon or whatever, but he's just so crafty and slippery. And I think, Owen, you alluded to it, that 3rd and 11 play, he catches the ball maybe 4 or 5 yards in front of the sticks and slips a couple tackle attempts and moves the chains. I think I was maybe expecting a little bit more from Josh Downs before the season started, because with Daniel Jones being an efficient, quick passer, I thought maybe he was going to get a lot more targets. That hasn't necessarily been the case, but he's found his role and he's doing it really, really, really well, which is only going to serve this offense well going down the line.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, what Tyler Warren's been able to do is he's been able to raise the floor of this offense, right? You look at the last couple of years, obviously there's nothing wrong with having Mo Alley Cox on your team, but having him as your number 1 tight end isn't really an ideal idea for winning football games. Now with Tyler Warren as your true number 1 tight end, you could have these guys like Mo Alley Cox and Drew Ogletree be blocking tight ends, be second tight ends on these formations, and they're being even more valuable than they were before. I think Tyler Warren actually now has more yards on the season than the tight end room did all of last year. I'm pretty sure. If not, it's getting pretty close. But I have a friend, Noah, he absolutely nailed it when he said this before the season, but he said that Tyler Warren is a more athletic George Kittle, and I think that's exactly what he is and exactly what he's proving out to be, because he does everything. He blocks, he catches. I mean, he's going to be wearing that C on his jersey within the next year or two. He is really the epitome of what the Colts have been able to do this year and the turnaround season they're having. Now, Owen, I am glad you mentioned Emeka Egbuka, because I'm sorry this race is not close right now. I mean, Emeka Egbuka has had over almost 300 receiving yards over the last 2 weeks combined. He went for 163 yesterday against one of the league's best defenses. So as much as I love Tyler Warren, as much as I want him to win, there is just nobody doing what Emeka Egbuka is doing right now in Tampa Bay. I mean, he's got almost 500 on the season already, and we're in week 5. But I mean, I'd love to see Tyler Warren win it, and I don't know if Emeka Egbuka is going to keep these numbers up, because obviously the Bucs are missing
That's
a bunch.
what I'm worried about.
They're missing a bunch of receivers. Mike Evans is out. Jalen McMillan has not come back yet. Chris Godwin's still getting eased back in, but I agree. I think it's going to be a really fun race to watch as the season progresses. I mean, maybe Ashton Genty, if he continues to play well, will assert himself into this conversation. But back to Tyler Warren. I mean, he has just been absolutely unbelievable. He's done something in every single game this year. And I think he's done more than the Colts tight end room has in any season since 2018 Eric Ebron. And that's something that's really, really impressive in just 5 games.
Yeah, I think just moving back to that offensive rookie of the year numbers, I think just with how banged up the wide receiver room is for the Buccaneers right now, I think you can maybe look at those numbers being a little skewed, but just something to know as we continue on through the season. I think once you start getting into, the middle and the latter stages of the season, I think I like Tyler Warren to be a little bit more consistent on that end, just with, receivers versus tight ends. But that's just me. Egbuka could certainly prove me wrong. He's having a fantastic start to the season. Definitely did not have him as my wide receiver 1 in terms of rookie class coming in, but the most polished receiver, I think, in that rookie class so far. But moving on to the defense, another really solid game. I think during last episode, I think this is where we voiced maybe more of the concern on the Colts was the defensive side of things. But really, like I said last week, just control the pace and dictate the pace of the game, and they did that super, super well. 0 touchdowns allowed during the game, and forced Geno Smith into some uncomfortable spots, 4 sacks on the day, 2 turnovers, just a really solid overall game from the entire unit. And
they did that while being pretty banged up in the secondary. Mike Hilton left early in the game. So you're down to Mekhi Blackman, Jonathan Edwards, and your safeties, Nick Cross and Cam Bynum, who were both balling, by the way. But I want to focus on the corners, and Chris Lamont as well. all three of those corners, Lamons, Blackman, and Jonathan Edwards, all stepped up big time. All had past breakups, and that's fantastic right now. I know we talked about the Vegas receivers last week and how they might not be like, the most talented, like the most elite receivers in the world, but were they effective, and do they know how to catch the ball?
Mm-hmm.
And have they been great for Geno Smith, even though the Raiders have struggled? The Colts backups, basically, being able to do that and not necessarily shut them down, but Trey Tucker was their leading receiver with just 62 yards. Only 228 passing yards for Geno Smith and the 2 interceptions. It's huge for the defense, and not just the secondary, the entire defense, confidence-wise going forwards. And I think we've talked about the pass rush in past maybe not being so great. I want to point out they're 5th in the league in sacks right now. 3 sacks yesterday, all coming from guys who you wouldn't necessarily expect. Well, one from DeForest Buckner, that you can expect, absolutely. But Tyquan Lewis and Samson Ebukam and Zaire Franklin, 4 sacks on the game. All produced, all came through with big plays. Laiatu Latu, again, we talk about it every week with Laiatu Latu. He's getting so close, and he's not necessarily producing the numbers, but he's playing his role and he's creating opportunities for his teammates. That creator role it's kind of becoming his MO this season. And, as a pass rusher, you want the sacks, you want the numbers, because at the end of the day, you want to get paid. But being able to embrace that role, especially at a young age for Laiatu Latu, I think that could be really valuable for the Colts going forwards. And just on the whole yesterday, being able to hold Vegas out of the end zone completely is just awesome. And I know this isn't the best team in the league, because team on a 4-game losing streak, but as you get into the schedule, later into the schedule, and you're playing better offenses who are scoring more points, knowing that, hey, on any given day, we can shut down any offense in the league and keep them out of the end zone completely, that's huge for Lou Anarumo.
Yeah, I'll add into that and I'm going to point out some of the veterans on the team. Since you talked mostly about the backups, Zaire Franklin, I thought this was by far his best game of the season. I'm always been a pretty big critic of Zaire Franklin, mainly because some of the things I think he does like off the field in terms of like these like podcasts and stuff, I think kind of distracts from on the field stuff. I was very critical of that last year, but on the field on Sunday, he was fantastic. Really good in run defense and in cover defense, especially considering how bad Joe Bacci was yesterday. And this is a real problem for the Colts defense, is the second linebacker opposite Zaire Franklin. Now, I want to point out one name, Jermaine Pratt. He was released by the Raiders today. This is a guy with connections to Lou Anarumo. I would not be shocked at all if this guy is in a Colts uniform, honestly, as soon as this upcoming Sunday. This is a real issue for the Colts, and when they start facing better offenses, that second linebacker is going to be a huge problem. Also, another veteran, Charvarius Ward. He doesn't show up on the stat sheet, but you know why he doesn't show up on the stat sheet? Because he's not targeted. What did Jacoby Myers do yesterday? Absolutely nothing. Mooney Ward completely locked him down yesterday. And I was following him quite a lot during the game. And yeah, Jacoby Myers did absolutely nothing yesterday. Just incredible stuff. And that's why the Colts went out and paid him $54 million. I mean, he has been the best corner the Colts have had since prime Vontae Davis, which is honestly pretty incredible because it's been about a decade since prime Vontae Davis, RAP. Laiatu Latu continuing to just improve every single week. It's pretty funny because he actually has more interceptions than sacks right now, which is really, really funny. I forgot you might want to play him at slot corner until Kenny Moore comes back. Just saying, especially if Mike Hilton's going to be out. But it's great to see. It's great to see after a bit of a tough rookie season, just him improving every single week, and those sack numbers are going to show up at some point because he's getting consistent pressure every single game, and he did that again today. I will say, I think the 5th in the league sacks is a bit deceiving because I think they've gone up against some really weak offensive lines, and this is kind of similar to 2 years ago when the Colts had a franchise record in sacks in 2023, and I really didn't think the D-line was really that great that year. So I think sometimes that could be a bit deceiving. Like, I want to see them get more consistent pressure when they play actually good offensive lines, because that will show me that the Colts have a good pass rush. When the Colts, they've got some good offensive lines coming up, in the next couple of weeks. So we got to see what the pass rush looks in that, but overall, really impressive stuff from the Colts defense. As you mentioned, Owen, holding them out of the end zone. That's the first time they've done that in nearly 2 years. But I think there's a couple things they need to get fix one of them, that second linebacker spot, and that needs to be fixed ASAP. As I said, Jermaine Pratt is out there. Wouldn't be shocked if the Colts bring him in within the next couple of days. They really need to get that figured out. And obviously, you got to get healthier in the secondary, because it's great that Mekhi Blackman and Jonathan Edwards made plays yesterday, but are they going to make plays when the Colts go up against some of these better receiving cores as the season goes on?
Yeah, it certainly kind of, I think you can point out a few kind of positions where the Colts could upgrade when that trade deadline comes in less than a month now. Another popular name that I'm just going to throw out since we're on the subject, a lot of people are calling actually for Max Crosby for the Colts, which, pass rush. I think I'm going to lean a little bit more on the side of Peter here. I think there's not necessarily a reason to be too worried about it. Yes, the offensive line units have been not the best that the Colts have faced, but I think when you talk about just Latu improving time and time again, week after week after season, then you're not going to want to, mess any of that up by bringing another guy in, especially if they end up playing the same position. Latu likes to, if you're on the offensive side of the ball, he likes to line up on the right. And that's where you can see a lot of dangerous pass rushers kind of, also play that position. Sorry, words are hard today. But I don't think you want to mess with a ton of the Colts defense right now, especially just with how, all the health concerns. I think if you keep trying to add guys, keep trying to, pick and choose where you want guys. Yes, there are some positions like that slot corner I think needs to be addressed, especially if Mike Hilton's thing is longer than it has to be and Kenny Moore ends up being set back more games. But I think you kind of stick with what you got right now, and then look at what your record maybe looks like towards the latter stages of October. And then if you're willing to make that big move, you have to go all in. You can't hold anything back, especially for Chris Ballard. GM's one of those places where, your job could look secure one week and then a month later you're on the hot seat again. So that was certainly the case preseason. And, I'm not saying the Colts are just going to go flat out and lay an egg for the rest of the season, but, there's still a lot of games left. Of course, I think the playoffs is definitely the thing on your mind. So you got to make sure that you have a squad that can compete in that playoff spot. But overall, I think we can kind of now go ahead and move to next week, as the Colts in their week 6 matchup will face off against the Arizona Cardinals inside of Lucas Oil Stadium. Once again, 1:00 game on October 12th will be broadcasted on Fox. Gentlemen, any scouting report that you want to go over? I think the main thing that you can pay attention to is the Cardinals' their offense, I should say, and maybe how they haven't performed up to the standard that I think a lot of people have liked them to be, but still a lot of weapons and a lot of dynamic players that could still give you problems on any given night.
Yeah, this is an Arizona Cardinals offense that has a ton of talent that, as you mentioned, Owen, just hasn't really lived up to the expectations this season. I think Kyler Murray is a great quarterback, and he has great weapons. Things just haven't really worked out super well so far. I think the big thing to note with the offense is the injuries at running back. Trey Benson and James Conner are both on IR. Michael Carter is listed as the starting running back right now. His backups are Amari DiMercato, who Coltsed it yesterday by fumbling out of the end zone. A.D. Mitchell / Jonathan Taylored it, if you will, and Bam Knight. So I think it's obvious to say that the Colts have to stop the run, but I think it's even more important now that you're not really going up against somebody like an Ashton Genty like you were this last week, because by doing that, you're going to force Kyler Murray and the offense to become more one-dimensional, and then at that point, then you know what you're going to get. You're going to get a lot more pass looks, a lot more passes thrown. Trey McBride's a great tight end. I think having Tyler Warren is going to help game plan for him. Not saying that they're the same players necessarily, but they are capable of the same things. And Marvin Harrison Jr., someone who the Colts should know, somewhat well, given that his dad was a receiver for them for a long time, a very, very good receiver in that.
He was all right.
And, and then outside of that, I mean, Michael Wilson's an okay wide receiver too. Zay Jones can do his job, but you just prevent Kyler Murray from making plays and stop the run, and I think you're halfway home for the Colts defense. I look at the offensive line, and the strengths are on the edges. Jonah Williams and Paris Johnson are your tackles. I really don't know too much about their interior guys, to be completely honest, but that's also going to be a point of emphasis to win that battle there, and the Colts definitely have the talent to dominate at the line of scrimmage against this offense. And yeah, I mean, that's what I see with this offense. I think the defense we can get into a little bit. I'll let Jack go ahead here for a second, but I think this is going to be a game where you got to focus more on the Cardinals defense.
Well, the key for the Colts defense is going to be to stop Trey McBride. This Colts defense is, they have problems defending healthy tight ends, and when this cover linebacker core is as weak as it is, and you got one of the best tight ends in the league on the other side, I expect Trey McBride to be a massive target for Arizona in this game. I mean, you could argue he's the best tight end in the league right now with the way he's playing. And the other key is to pressure Kyler Murray. This is one of the worst offensive lines in the league. They've played like it all year. I think Drew Petzing is a terrible offensive coordinator. I mean, I've called out a lot of offensive coordinators the Colts have gone up against, but that's because most of them have been terrible. And Drew Petzing is another example. It's bad when the Cardinals are 2-3, considering that they actually have the best scoring defense in the NFC early on in the season. And you mentioned an offense this talented, they have just not been able to score points. And I think that falls on Drew Petzing. I think Kyler Murray has something to do with it, although I don't really think he's even played that bad. Obviously, the injuries at running back are a killer. And it's not only killed them, it's killed my fantasy team too. But we don't have to talk about that. I think
you want to talk about it.
I did
it sounded like you want to talk about it.
I picked up Rico Dowdle yesterday, so I'm okay. 33 points. But anyways, yeah, I don't even know what to say about the Cardinals because I thought they were going to turn a corner this year, and they have just not done that. I still think they have the potential to do so, but it's not going to be easy going up against this Colts defense, which has played really well. I mentioned the concerns about the pass rush I have, and I'm not saying I want them to retool or anything. I just want them to continue to improve as the season goes on because they failed to do that 2 years ago, and that was a big reason they missed the playoffs is because the pass rush didn't do anything in those big games. But I think the pass rush is going to have a big game today. One name I would keep out for at the trade deadline, not a pass rusher. I'd keep an eye on Reek Woolen from Seattle, a guy who's really been talked about a lot as a potential trade candidate. The Colts need some help in that secondary, and Reek Woolen, a guy who's had some really good seasons, still relatively young, and Seattle appears to be ready to move on. So I don't think that would be a crazy thing to look at. And then offensively, just continue to do what you've been doing. Just run. You got to run the rock with Jonathan Taylor. Give him 20 touches. I mean, we actually even mentioned Jonathan Taylor when talking about the offense before. He did have 3 touchdowns, but only 66 yards on the ground. Did most of his work down in the red zone. But that's also because the Colts had a lot of short fields to work with. But you got to rely on Jonathan Taylor. I think those quick passes are going to be, once again, a key factor for Daniel Jones this upcoming week. We'll see if Alec Pierce comes back. We're not going to speculate on anything if he's going to be back this week or not. Still battling and he's still in the concussion protocol, but I think the key again is going to be to limit the turnovers because the Colts are 4-1 this year, their exact record when they win the turnover battle. So you win the turnover battle, you win football games, and this is a big one because the second half schedule for the Colts after the bye week is really tough. So you have to win these games that you're supposed to win, especially at home, and you have to do it convincingly.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of leaning towards a Colts win here, just looking across the board. I can't really say with how banged up the Cardinals running back room is, the issues that the overall offense has had. And if you really take Trey McBride out of the game and at least contain Marvin Harrison Jr., then Kyler Murray is just going to have a really tough time getting anything going for the entire game. I would like to see a little bit more from Jonathan Taylor in this week as well. Jonathan Taylor had a great game, 3 touchdowns, but like you said, a lot of that came in the red zone production area. Never really had that really breakaway run that we've, come to like and see with Jonathan Taylor, but it's no, diss on the offensive line or anything like that. Just Jonathan Taylor didn't have, the most snaps and the most carries that game and just couldn't really find his footing. I am intrigued to also see what the situation is with Alec Pierce. With concussions, it could sometimes take a week, sometimes take longer than that, so we just don't know. But you add another weapon back into that offense, and, Cardinals could have a really, really big issue on their hands with their defense, which is probably maybe their strongest part of their team so far this season. It's kind of hard to tell with the Cardinals just because, they've kind of just been staying in that average spot this year. But again, another game that I think you also don't take for granted. Another game that on any given day, like I said, the Cardinals could give the Colts issues. So yeah, control the dictate in the pace of the game, and I think the Colts will be fine. Peter, anything else to add?
I think this is a sneaky challenge for the Colts offense because this Arizona defense, for as inconsistent as their team has been and as, we'll call it poorly coached as their team has been, their head coach is a defensive mind, Jonathan Gannon, and their defense has definitely been their strength so far this season. They're holding opponents under 20 points per game, and they're holding opponents to under 100 rushing yards per game. Under 95, really. So I think Jonathan Taylor, I agree with both of you. I think we need to see more out of Jonathan Taylor because as we talked about last week, him and Tyler Warren have to be the guys who you go through on offense. And it's going to be a challenge for sure. I think Arizona's going to come to play. They're going to be upset with themselves after losing a game that they should have won to the Titans yesterday. Let's be real about that. And yeah, I think the Colts just, it sounds dumb, but you got, if you put up 20 points, you're going to win this game. And the Colts offense is more than capable of that. They're averaging well above that this season. And like you, Owen, I am leaning towards a Colts win, but it's an any given Sunday type of thing in the NFL. And this defensive line definitely has the talent to shut Jonathan Taylor down. Calais Campbell, for as old as he is still very, very good. Darius Robinson has an injury, it looks like, so we'll keep an eye on that. Young secondary. So other than Budda Baker and Jalen Thompson, you have a lot of young guys, including Will Johnson, who's a steal of a rookie, by the way, in the second round. Mm-hmm. He's been one of the best picks in the draft. You bring in Baron Browning off the edge. So they have players in this defense who can cause problems. I think regardless of if Alec Pierce is back or not, you got to throw the ball with effect and you got to be efficient. Daniel Jones has been that. So I don't see it necessarily as a concern, but I think this game could be closer than some people think it could be, or than some might realize. But the Colts have been so good at home this year, and the Cardinals, you just don't know what version of the Cardinals are necessarily going to show up. So, yeah, like you said, Owen, I'm leaning towards a Colts win, but you just never know in the NFL these days.
Yeah, anything can happen any given week, but I'm going to agree with you guys. I'm going to lean towards the Colts here. I think one thing that we have to mention is, Shane Steichen was with Jonathan Gannon in Philly for 2 years. Steichen was the offensive coordinator, Gannon was the defensive coordinator, so they went up against each other in practice every single week, and I think that could really help Shane Steichen with having the familiarity, because the defense that Jonathan Gannon runs with the Cardinals is the exact same that he ran in Philly. He still calls the defensive plays for the Arizona Cardinals. But as you said, they're going to be upset after throwing that game away last week. But at the same time, I mean, this loss could also lose. This is a type of loss that can lose the locker room, and especially for a team that's looking to establish an identity, looking to get out of this hole they've been in for the last couple of years. That was just a disheartening loss for the Cardinals last week. But I think the real key in this game is going to be the Colts offense against the Cardinals defense, because I think the Colts defense is going to be able to do more than enough against a banged up and inconsistent Arizona Cardinals offense with an offensive coordinator, I think, who could lose his job within the next couple of weeks with how bad he's been. So I'm leaning towards the Colts here. And as you said, Peter, I think the home field advantage really plays a factor here. Cardinals are going basically across the country to face the Colts across several time zones, just coming off that really bad loss to Tennessee. So yeah, I'm going to lean towards the Colts here. Again, anything can happen on any given Sunday. We saw yesterday with quite a few games, New England going into Buffalo in primetime and beating the Bills, the Broncos beating the defending world champions on the road as well. Anything can happen, but as I said, I feel pretty confident that the Colts are going to be able to pull this one out, and I'll send it back to you.
One more thing before we get into score predictions really quick. Jonathan Gannon and Shane Steichen were hired to their respective teams at the same time, same season. So they've had the same amount of time to be head coaches. Mm-hmm. They've kind of been stuck in that circle of mediocrity for the first couple of seasons. But you look at the way that these two teams are performing now. Colts are 4-1, unbeaten at home. Just a couple mistakes away from being 5-0. They're still the best team in the AFC. The Cardinals, good defense, talent on offense that's just not working right now. You're just not sure what version of the Cardinals is going to show up any given week. That's telling. And I think it's a credit to the work that Shane Steichen has done with this team and the togetherness that the Colts locker room has. And I think ultimately that is going to be a difference maker. And Jack, as you said, this is a game for the Cardinals that could lose you the locker room depending on how things go. Drew Petzing could just end up being a scapegoat, and Jonathan Gannon doesn't have a job at the end of the season depending on how things go. So I wanted to give Shane Steichen his flowers for it's taken some time, but he's getting there and things are working. So credit to him.
Things are working in Indianapolis right now. Predictions coming up right now. I will go ahead and start first. I will take the cake because I think I've gone last the last 2 weeks. I think this has another blowout potential. If I'm being completely honest with you, I was a little conservative with my pick. I'm not going to lie. Against the Raiders, I'm going to open things up a little bit. I'm going to say Colts 35, Cardinals 10.
Oh.
Yeah. Colts handle them easily. Of course, all 35 touchdowns you don't really have a crazy amount of, confidence or any kind of idea what you're getting with kickers. So maybe we see some 4th and short situations where Colts would like to go for it, where they would rather hand the ball off to Spencer Schrader. And I think I kind of like that aggressive approach to the offense if they choose to do that. I think this is a game, again, where you can kind of show what your offense can do without, emptying the entire playbook, but really just staying consistent and doing your job for another week, I think is gonna reign true. I'm gonna give, barring he comes back, I'm gonna say Alec Pierce finds the end zone, and we see another touchdown from Tyler Warren. Those are my scoring predictions, gentlemen. Your turn.
I think, like I said, this is probably going to be closer than 25 points. And I think the Cardinals' defense is definitely going to frustrate the Colts for a little bit. I think for the Cardinals' offense, Kyler Murray is just going to be a thorn in their side. And it's not going to be easy for them by any means. I think a close game, but for close for a Colts game this season, I'm still going to say 2 possessions. I'm going to go 24-14. Colts win at home. I think Josh Downs is due for the end zone.
That's a great call.
I think he finds pay dirt, and why not? Well, let's have a little bit of fun. I think the Colts, barring. We'll have to monitor how things go with Tyler Goodson, but I think DJ Giddens finally finds the end zone. I think I can draw something up special for him.
That would be a fun one. I like that. Jack, anything you got?
Yeah, let's go ahead and make this a clean sweep. I like the Colts to win here. I'm gonna pretty close to your score, Peter, but I'm gonna give the Colts an additional field goal, 27-14 in favor of Indianapolis. I think this really comes down to defensive pressure against a really weak O-line. I think Latu has multiple sacks in this game. I'm gonna say I'll give him 2 sacks. Never had a multiple sack game in the NFL. I'll say this is the first one. And I think the offense is going to be, I don't think they're going to be as efficient as they were last week where they scored on 6 straight drives, because I do think the Cardinals defense has a lot of potential to do well in this game, but I think the Colts will be able to control the pace of this game. I think they're going to be able to control the time of possession in this game and just have these really long clock melting drives that's going to keep Arizona's offense on the field. Michael Pittman, 3-game touchdown streak. I'm going to say he brings that to 4. I'm also going to say, I'm going to go to the defensive side. I think Charvarius Ward will get his first interception as a Colt. I feel like maybe just like Kyler Murray throws one up to Marvin Harrison Jr. and Tribune Ward, really tall, very athletic. Think maybe he could go up there and get one this week. But Michael Pittman Jr. already has more touchdowns than he did all of last year. 4 touchdowns in 5 games. He only had 3 all of last year. Now, granted, last year he played through a broken back, which, I mean, that just shows what kind of player Michael Pittman Jr. is and why he is so beloved in this locker room. But ultimately, I think the Colts win. Maybe this is a close game at halftime, maybe like a tie game, or maybe even Arizona's winning or something like that. But I think the Colts are really going to be able to put this game away. As we know, Jonathan Taylor is a second half running back, and I feel like once the second half comes, the Colts are just going to rely on Jonathan Taylor to carry them through. I wouldn't be shocked if in the second half the Colts have it's 80% of the offensive snaps are run plays to Jonathan Taylor, because that's how the Colts wear down opponents. And, another thing, I want to say one more thing, too. Weather's looking beautiful at Lucas Oil on Sunday, so the roof might be open. And as we've seen with some teams, especially undisciplined teams, when the roof is open, that roof causes problems, okay? Especially on special teams. We saw when the Colts played Kansas City a couple of years ago, and the Chiefs' punt return game was having so many problems tracking the ball.
Sky Moore.
Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm. With that roof open, that roof is just designed to confuse teams and their special teams. So we saw how undisciplined the Cardinals were last week. If that roof is open, there could be some real problems for them trying to track the ball during these kickoffs and during these punt returns. But give me the Colts 27-14 and move to 5-1.
Well, plenty of football to watch if you live in Indiana. First off, Indiana travels to Eugene, Oregon for a top 10 matchup in college football. And then, like we mentioned, the Indianapolis Colts host the Cardinals at 1 o'clock next Sunday. Tune into Fox if you like to view that, or go to Lucas Oil for the game. That's going to do it for us on the Colts on Kirkwood podcast from Owen Graham, Peter Miller, and Jack Rizzo. We will see you guys next time.